309 players in the portal better than Cam Cook. I'm sorry, but I just can't buy it, and I don't buy it. Can we please just praise this guy a little bit? Cam Cook deserves so much more credit than he gets.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Guys, welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here, and welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking Mountaineer football again this evening, and obviously tonight, if you will, I guess to be better. Excited to be doing so here with you guys on another episode of the show. And look, like I said earlier, Cam Cook, they say there's 309 players better than him. I just don't buy it. We're going to talk about that today. Thanks for making us your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we're going to be talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. Brought to you by FanDuel today. And right now with FanDuel, guys, $5 is all it takes. If you want to bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets, you can do so. And if your first bet wins, head over to FanDuel.com now to get started. And thanks for making us your first listen, guys. But we have a guest, obviously, and I bet you can't guess who it is. It's not Jackson tonight. We've got our good friend of the show, Jersey Ear, on to talk a little Cam Cook and West Virginia football.
Love it, Paul. Absolutely love it. Thank you for having me on. It's always fun. I love talking about running backs, love talking about football. So this was a no-brainer to come on the show tonight. Absolutely, man.
Okay, let me set you up here. I'm going to tee it up for you, and then I'll just let you just whack this thing out of. I mean, you're going to go 450 feet with this. Right?
Mark McGuire style.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. Cam Cook, the nation's leading rusher from last year. It's a pretty good place to start. Conference USA Player of the Year, Doak Walker Award semifinalist, and one of the most productive players in all of college football Jersey year, was ranked 309th overall in the portal and the 24th running back by 247 Sports. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, man, when you look at his production and what he did. Numbers never lie, right? It's not like this guy's coming up from the D2 or D3 level. This guy played at Jack State, yes, but look at the production he had at Jack State. 295 carries, 1,659 yards, 16 tutties, and averaged 5.6 yards a carry. Last year, out of 13 games, he rushed for over 110 of those. And, you know, even going back to his TCU days, people forget he was the leading rusher at TCU in 2024. He had 119 carries for 460 yards, averaged 3.9 yards a carry, and had 9 touchdowns. That was 68 more carries than anybody else on TCU's roster. So that just goes to show you that another Big 12 coaching staff believed in this guy so much that he got 68 more carries than anybody on TCU's team. So in my opinion, I think he's getting disrespected. And I think it goes back to the WVU effect. You know, I think if this guy signs with Georgia, if he signs with a school like Texas, you're not seeing him ranked in the 300. You're probably seeing him as a top 100 player, in my opinion. So I think a little bit is the brand on the helmet and the brand on the jersey. But in my opinion, that's way too low. It's a little bit disrespectful. But the good news is he should come in with a chip on his shoulder this year, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he was in high school. You look at what he was here at TCU. This is against Texas. Do you think Texas had some good athletes on the field right here? And he's making 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 4 guys miss. You know, how about punt return versus Texas? I mean, who would have thought that? Here he is versus Texas on punt return and doing an excellent job. You know, he's just so versatile. The only knock I could put on him is his breakaway speed. That's it. He can be caught from behind. That's it.
Yeah, if you
that's
watch
the only negative he has.
If you watch the highlights with him, that's the one knock, right? He can run through you. He has really great balance, and he's going to break a lot of tackles, and he's very versatile, like you said. But it is that breakaway speed. Sometimes he doesn't finish runs for touchdowns, but he still had 16 last year. I think I'm glad you mentioned the punt returns, Paul. And I think the one thing that with doing more research, especially getting ready for this episode, he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. He had 30 catches last year for 286 yards. If you look at West Virginia's receiving numbers last year, the leading receiver had 35?
He'd have been our second leading receiver.
Yeah, he would have been our second leading receiver as a running back. So that just shows the versatility that this guy has. He can catch punts. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And he's going to an offensive system that is made for running backs. When we think Rich Rodriguez football, we think running quarterbacks. When we think of that running back position, he has a huge opportunity to remind people this year who Cam Cook is.
Obviously he exploded onto the scene at Jacksonville State. You mentioned the TCU production. He's 5'9", probably on a good day. Some places have him 5'10". If he's 5'10", so be it. But, he's anywhere from 210-ish, 205, 210, 205, 210, somewhere in there. Really compact. I think that's the way I would describe him. And a violent runner at that. He's got, what's crazy about him is he doesn't have top-end speed, but he's got elite acceleration. So it's like he gets there really fast. 2-3 steps, he is moving. And that's why he's able to get those chunk yards, because he's just able to cut up and get to the second level before people can react. Who my comp for him is? I've thought about it a lot. They're not the same size player, but their running style is very similar. Le'Veon Bell.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Is that really?
Yeah, because Le'Veon's kind of like that Swiss Army knife. I remember him at Michigan State, and very similar running style. Le'Veon was remember how patient he was before he hit the hole.
That's what he was known for.
Yeah, his patience. I'll tell you what, if we're making comps to Le'Veon Bell, that'd be great. Not to make a comparison to guys, but I'm a Giants fan. As the Jersey Ear Show, I live about 45 minutes from MetLife Stadium, so go Giants. But I think of shorter running backs that we've been successful with the Giants. Tiki Barber, someone that was 5'10", and then Amon Bradshaw, a guy that coming out of Marshall down your way, Paul, was really dynamic. 7th round coming out of Marshall. A smaller running back. So me personally, I like the undersized running back. To go out there. But when I look at Cam Cook, I don't think undersized. That dude's like a grown man. He's swole. You know what I mean? He can run through tackles. So
he led college football in broken tackles last year.
Yeah, there was a stat that came out, because I did a video on Cam Cook a few weeks ago about he could be the next elite West Virginia running back, and I think it was him, Ashton Genty, and Scadaboo since 2015 have broken the most tackles in college football. That's a pretty good company to be with, in my opinion, if you're with Scadaboo and Ashton Genty.
That is insane. I think Jed Drenning put that out, as a matter of fact, now that you did it.
He did, yeah.
Obviously, I don't know if he's in a class with Scadaboo and definitely Genty. Genty at Boise State was maybe one of the greatest running backs ever. I was really – the way he looked, just the way he moved.
He single-handedly brought
insane.
Boise State to yeah. He
single-handedly. I don't know that. He was like, he had me like Adrian Peterson, Oklahoma, level of.
That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite college highlights. If I'm watching a highlight tape, I usually watch running backs and guys like AP and Reggie Bush growing up with. I always go back to those. But Adrian Peterson, man, if you ever want some entertainment, throw on the Adrian Peterson highlight tape when he was.
Or I'll tell you another underrated one, Darren McFadden.
Oh, he was right around that time when Pat White was there, back in that time. And it was like the 1 year was Pat White on the cover, or the next year was Darren McFadden, for NCAA football. It was.
I really thought McFadden was going to be like Adrian Peterson. I thought he was going to have that kind of career in the NFL.
Yeah, and the other guy too is that got hurt, and unfortunately was Latimer from South Carolina, had that devastating injury.
Oh my God, isn't that so sad?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, unfortunately, that's college football. But yeah, that was pretty sad, because that guy had a really bright future ahead of him. And unfortunately that happened. But I think, and Paul, Paul. Going back to your point, you said he was the 25th running back taken, according to 24/7 Sports, right? So
right.
If you look at college football 26, which I'm a huge fan of that game, I play all the time. He was actually ranked in the top 10 running backs on that game. So he was a 91 overall. And, the only guys that were ahead of him were like Jeremiah Love, Mark Fletcher, and players like that. But he has the same rating as Antoine Raymond from Rutgers. He has the same rating as Caleb Hawkins from North Texas, which I know you know all too well from doing the Locked On stuff. So he's in good company according to EA Sports, and I take their ratings pretty seriously.
That's
too,
fair.
so.
That's fair. You know what I mean? Caleb Hawkins, like what he did last year, was as impressive as Cam Cook. And very different players in a lot of ways, but yeah. So we just kind of outlined what kind of player he is, right? But after the break, I want to ask you, why do you think he fits Rich Rod's system so perfectly? Because obviously we know there are a ton of good players out there. Not all fit this system perfectly, right? I mean, Rich Rod can have a guy, that can fit it. He can figure it out, is what I'm trying to say. But I mean, there are certain types of players that are better than others for this system. Why is Cam Cook such a perfect fit? We'll talk about that and more after the break. Guys, we got to talk about our friends today at FanDuel. And did you know with FanDuel, right now, guys, the playoffs are here with the NBA. Every possession matters. And if you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great action and some offers for you to get started. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. You can turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And I like using FanDuel during the playoffs, man. It makes everything easier. I can need it right there, all in one place. And you can check stats, trends, and matchups before you make your picks, which makes the whole experience a lot more informed. And if you really want to make the app easy to navigate, you can do so. It makes the playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com where you too can get started with FanDuel and play your game. It's segment 2. We're going to crack open a Zero Sugar Dew jersey here and ask you the question of all questions, man. It's not what time is it game time on this one. It's Cam Cook. I mean, how does he fit this system so perfectly? Because obviously, a couple things. Obviously, he's coming over with Rich Trickett, right? And that system is still going to be similar to him. So he's coming in here with a little bit of a head start as well. And it's obviously a very similar thing. It's not exactly the same to what they did at Jack State last year, but it's like if we were going to grade it on a scale to 1 to 10, like how similar, it's like a 6 or 7. So it's very similar.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Cam Cook is, like you said, the missed tackles. And think about what Rich Rod wants to do. He wants to wear you down. He wants to go at a tempo where at the end of the game, you are so worn down. The only time they want to take a foot off the gas pedal is if they're running clock to wrap the game up. So when I think of a guy that fits the style, you have to, you're going to have to bring 11 guys to the ball to take down Cam Cook. And I think after just carry after carry after carry, and you put in Latimer with him, that 1-2 punch, that's just going to wear down defenses. And on top of that, you have 2 quarterbacks that can show that they can run the ball. So I think the biggest thing is this year is if West Virginia can get the pace going this year, I think because of Cam Cook's ability to break tackles and to keep the play alive, I think that he's the perfect fit for the system.
Yeah, I agree 100%, bro. A couple of things about Cook, too, before we move on to a couple other things I wanted to get into. I just think, the things that he does so well, like the one-cut explosion, the instant acceleration, we talked about that a little. He's got elite vision, though. That never gets talked about from him as much as I think it should, as well as his quick change of direction. Obviously, he's got the start-stop quickness, burst through the creases, and has got the contact balance, which he also mentioned. But, a really underrated part of his game that nobody really talks about is how he stresses the edges of defenses. Like, he is so good at it, man. And it's all because of his weird patience, very similar to Le'Veon, like we were talking about. If you look at some of his Jack State stuff last year, getting outside, he does it on play after play. And I just think it's just something that is way, way, way business to single. Like, guys just can't get him on the ground, man.
Yeah. So
One,
my
two.
Yeah, he's insane. Paul, my question to you is, and I asked this question on my show. We talked about Cam Cook, and I talked on my show about like elite running backs that we've had over the years. What do you think? What type of season do you think it would be for Cam Cook to get into that category, to be in the same conversation as Slayton, as Divine? Like, what would he have to do with his stats to do that?
That's a good question. I think
one of the main things
because
is win. Yes, this team has to have some memorable games and win some games. I think that's the first thing we talked about. But
yeah,
besides
winning matters, definitely matters. But to what extent for him to have a memorable season is kind of like it's a really hard question to answer.
well, it
Because
goes back
if he has 2,200 yards, but we win 4 games, people will probably still remember that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think people still remember Charles Sims, and Charles that year they sucked. They won 4
Yeah,
games, but
that's
Charles Sims
great point.
had
I
1,000
still
yard.
remember Andrew Bowie. You know what I mean?
Andrew
He
Bowie
had some games.
He had the great game against Texas on the road.
Bowling Green as well. Remember?
Bowling Green was actually Dustin Garrison. I actually did a video on that the other day. Dustin Garrison had 250 yards versus Bowling Green his freshman season.
Might have been Garrison, who I'm thinking of, probably.
Yeah, it was Garrison. That was my freshman year at West Virginia, and Garrison. It was a pouring rainy day, and Dustin Garrison had 250 yards rushing that day. He had 700 yards that true freshman season for Garrison, but that was kind of his best. That was the best version we saw of him, was that freshman season.
Yeah, they were squeezing every drop of talent out of that kid. He wasn't super talented. Like,
yeah,
he was obviously he was obviously a D1 athlete, but I mean, like, as far as like West Virginia running backs go, you know what I mean? He just was. I mean, they were squeezing every drop of talent out of him to get him to where he was.
Yeah, and the other thing we debated on that episode too was like a guy like Wendell Smallwood. Like,
Wendell Smallwood, good Lord.
Like, is he elite? Is he great, or is he elite? Because he led the Big 12 in rushing, so I think that's another thing.
Letty Brown, same kind of conversation to me.
Yeah,
like Letty Brown is probably one of the more unsung heroes recently too.
Yeah,
he was early on in the Neil Brown era.
Yeah, definitely. But I think for going back to the original point, I think Cam Cook, if he put up like a 1,500 yard season if he put up similar numbers that he did at Jack State and replicated that in the Big 12, I think he'd go down as one of the elite running backs that we've had in a long time. And I think we've been waiting for an elite running back at West Virginia for a long time. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think it has been a while, too long actually. Probably since Letty. I said it the other day. Letty Brown was the last good running back we had that we could count on game in, game out. Letty Brown.
We saw flashes with CJ and Jaheim, but they never got over 1,000 yards.
It was never sustained, unfortunately.
And it's a shame that we never saw. It's a shame we never saw Jaheim, obviously, with Rich Rodriguez healthy for a season. That would have been nice to see. But with that offensive line last year, probably not putting up crazy production. I think now this situation sets up better with the balance that they're going to have with the quarterback position and the running back position. It should work out better.
Yeah, it should. It should. I'm trying not to get overhyped as far as like what the season's going to look like. By the way, if for those somebody had texted me while we were talking and it was asking me. I have people that do this to me all the time when I'm on the show, like asking me questions in my text instead of on the screen. But somebody asked what the biggest difference between Rich Rod and Charles Kelly's offense was. It's kind of hard to explain, but Rich Rod's more of a true spread option, with the zone read, the quarterback run, tempo, the numbers advantages he talks about with the conflict and defenders and the whole thing that he talks about. The whole thing he created basically, and Trickett and Kelly last year were much more multiple. They were less dependent on the heavy zone read. They had a lot more passing concepts and more traditional kind of spread structures in there, which means like basically more formations. They had a few more route combinations too, more pre-snap variation. Like if you look at their film last year, quarterback was doing stuff that West Virginia don't do pre-snap because West Virginia moves faster. And that's one of the biggest things is the tempo. They did go fast there last year at Jack State, but nowhere near what Rich Rod does. So those are probably the biggest weapons for a novice like me to explain. I couldn't get much more technical than that. But, I think the biggest thing that Rich Rod does that a lot of guys don't do is it's just the way he calls games. He doesn't even use analytics very often at all. Talked about it openly.
He's a very much gut guy.
Yeah. That's where Neil Brown was the opposite of that. Neil Brown is big analytic guy. Big analytic guy.
It's the polar opposite. Neil Brown's teams, they knew they were kind of, less talented a lot of times than other players. And they wanted to take the air out of the ball and limit possessions, where this coaching staff wants to do the opposite. They want to get more plays and run more snaps. It's the complete opposite.
I believe 2 more years, correct? Cam Cook? Or does he have 1 year?
I'm not quite sure. I was looking on ESPN.
Pretty sure he has 2.
He was listed as a junior last year on ESPN. But Paul, I just watched your episode before. What's a senior anyway? No one has any idea what a senior is. Listen, all I know is we have these guys for 1 season. That's my mindset from now on. We have these guys for 1 season. Enjoy it.
Yeah, if he has 1,600 yards again this year, very unlikely that we would keep him if he has another year. Just to be honest, I don't know that you would want to pay the premium, because you've got Amari Latimer, you've got all these other guys that are probably. Can I just be honest? I think talent-wise, Amari Latimer is probably going to be more talented than Cam Cook, and that's saying a lot. But my personal belief, let me just say that. My personal belief is I think Amari Latimer will eventually be better than what Cam Cook has become.
Well, I said in the video I did the other day, I did a video called Phenomenal Freshman, and I compared the phenomenal freshman now to the past. And running back was the one position where we've seen guys as freshmen have pretty big coming out parties. CJ Donaldson, Jaheim White, Garrison, all those guys had over 700 yards that freshman season. None of them were as highly as touted as Latimer. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Latimer just on film is just, there aren't many more impressive. I mean, his film it's in Georgia. So you're talking about one of the 5 to 7 hardest places to play high school football these days.
And he was he Mr. Georgia? He was
Mr. Georgia. He was also the Gatorade Player of the Year there, and consensus high, a consensus very solid 4-star guy. And it was down to Wisconsin, Miami. Like, Miami really wanted him bad. I talked to his people about that. And had it not been for Jameer's experience at Jack State, they knew the staff so well. Relationships matter in this portal game, man. 9 times out of 10, if a guy's going somewhere, there's some relationship from somewhere, recruiting, or like Jameer played for Rich Rod. They knew that they were going to be taken care of.
Think about, just even too, Kevin, obviously the Kevin Brown connection, that he doesn't come to West Virginia if it wasn't for his dad playing, right. So the family connections are huge.
Did you see my video on Dana about that?
Yeah, I did. I did see that. And again, I was on
your opinion
campus
on that.
Yeah, I was on campus during that time, and it always did feel like there was.
By the way, can you explain to the audience so they know what happened?
Yeah, so there was a controversy where I think it was a miscommunication, probably, where Kevin Brown's dad and him went on a visit to Morgantown, and they were escorted out of practice. So there was probably a miscommunication there, but I always did feel like there was a disconnect between the past and the present when I was there. It was always about like the Dana Holgerson show, and there wasn't much talk about the old teams that were there. Those were some elite teams, and I just always felt like there wasn't as much. It wasn't as welcoming to former players. And I think what probably happened there, and I'm just guessing, is maybe Dana didn't know that he was a former player, or maybe he didn't care. I would hope that it's the first one where he didn't know and it was a miscommunication. But either way, it's not a good look, and we got lucky that didn't burn us. But those family connections matter so much. And Paul, real quick, if I can just go back to the Latimer thing real quick, since we were talking about him, I think the most encouraging thing about Latimer is the comments from Boulware this year. I think it was Boulware that talked about Latimer and his approach off the field, how he is the first one in, the last one to leave. He's treating his body right. He's treating it like he's a pro, and the kid's only 18 years old. And I think that has a lot to do with his family and his brother. And this kid is, even though he's a true freshman, I think he has the right mentality going into year one.
After the break, we'll put a bow on this one with Jersey Year. Stick around, guys. It's Locked On West Virginia. It's segment 3. Come along with me. It's the Milkman, the Paperboy, and Evening TV. Back with our familiar friend. It's Jersey Ear coming around the bend. Guys, make sure you're checking him out. Where?
Jersey, I guess it's on YouTube called Jersey Ear. There's not too many New Jersey guys talking West Virginia football, so check out Jersey Ear. About a year ago, I actually had a conversation with Paul. I reached out to him and said I'm thinking about doing a show, and the year anniversary is coming up on that show. So we've been gaining traction, and we've done a lot in year 1, and looking forward to year 2. So definitely check out the show if you enjoyed me with Paul. I would really appreciate if you checked out my channel. So thank you.
Yeah, I've always, it's fun. I enjoy, I don't know if mentoring is the right word, but, helping guys in your situation in Troy and other people that have started shows. I really, truly do. I think it's, too many people try to gatekeep information. And like I told you when the very first talked to me, I said, I'll never gatekeep any information from you. It's just not who I am. Anyway, it's not about me. I just,
Troy, speaking of him, he has a great show. Congratulations to him. He's had some crazy growth recently. So I've watched his stuff. His stuff's very impressive too. And as yours is, and all the creators, so I like working with everyone. So I appreciate it, Paul, for having me on and giving me the opportunity to work with a bigger crowd. So thank you. And it's been fun. And hopefully we'll all grow this year with some wins with the Mountaineers.
If we win, we'll all have success for sure. So I'm going to talk about a couple other things really quick. We've got to get a few more minutes.
And real quick, Paul, before we start, I have to mention this, but I have to mention this before we start anything else. I watched the Dingus, West Virginia documentary after you put it out there, and I watched the whole 28 minutes. Fascinating town, fascinating story. The Dingus Tunnel looks awesome. I found it awesome. I watched the entire thing. It was great. And
that's awesome, dude. You're the second person that's mentioned that to me today. Dingus, West Virginia is obviously where I'm from, born and raised there, lived there for my whole life till I was a teenager. And, it's where I get this passion for the state of West Virginia. It's where it's my heritage. It's everything I am. And Dingus is truly a place. If you don't know where Mingo County, West Virginia is, a lot of you do, some of you do. Doris that comes in here and others, I just think it's so far out in the country that people get shocked by it when you bring them there. Like not that the skin color doesn't matter, but I had a black friend specifically that wanted to go back home with me. Senior year of high school, maybe. And it was the funniest thing, man, just watching him react to going that deep into the country,
Yeah,
and
it's a different culture,
Oh, yeah.
I think, just from someone that lived in West Virginia and lived in New Jersey, it's cool to see the different cultures. And I think that documentary guy did a nice job talking to the people. And I think that the main thing was how tight knit that community was. And they were truly passionate about their state and their community. So I was impressed by it. I think it was really cool. I think sometimes there's negative stereotypes about West Virginia people. And I think that a lot of them are false. If you go down there, the nicest people in the world. And I really enjoyed the documentary. Anyway, not to get off topic, but
no, that's great. It's about West Virginia, so it's pretty cool. Okay, so a couple other things really quick before we get off of here. I'm going to go through the roster. I got my roster, my own that I have written down here. So quarterbacks, you've got obviously Mike Hawkins Jr., Max Brown that were transfers. You've got Scotty Fox, Jaron Hughley, John Johnson, and Max Anderson. Those are the high school guys. Running backs, Cam Cook, Andre Devine, JUCO Martavis Boswell, who a lot of people like, Mari Latimer, Chris Talley, the high school guys. But I want to get to wide receiver for a second here because, of the guys we brought in, I think we can go 10 deep this year. What is your thought on this wide receiver core? And do we have a number one guy, or do we just have a bunch of really good guys, or maybe a bunch of really good to average guys?
That's a great question. I think that's the biggest question that we wonder every year is who's going to be the guy that pops. So, I always remember my senior year, I got to cover the team. I had a credential for the media working for U92, and I was at the West Virginia Alabama game. And that performance by Kevin White, you knew immediately Kevin White was going to be something special. we haven't had a receiver like that in a while. You know, David Sills was one of those number one guys, and guys like that.
Gary Jennings too could be.
Garrett Jennings, Caden Prather had a chance to do that.
Had he stayed.
Had he stayed, because he had a great career at Maryland too. That's a
Mm-hmm.
tough question. I think it's going to probably be more balanced if I had to guess. I don't think there'll be a number one. I think there'll be a few guys.
But pick one.
Pick one.
Just can you?
I gave my bold prediction the other day, so I should probably stick to that. And that's Teron Francis, because I just like the pedigree coming over from LSU. I know he's young. I know he's raw, but he was a 4-star coming out of high school. And I think there's a lot to like there. I know on some depth charts, some people don't have him as the number one at his position.
I don't have him as a number one right now.
Yeah.
My intel, I don't think he can still win the number one spot. He just, as of right now, isn't number one right now. I can tell you that, but he will be. He came on really strong at the end of spring. So
yeah, some guys are just gamers, you know. So
yeah,
I think with the opportunity, he could be. I mean, if I think the safer bet is probably going to be either Jaden Bray or Schrawn. Obviously, you know, Jaden Bray has 2 coaching staffs raving about him, and if West Virginia thought he was damaged goods, they wouldn't take a chance on him. And then, you know, Prince Schrawn absolutely killed it at USC camp last year. So I think Prince Schrawn, size-wise and skill-wise, frame of work would be, but coaching trust and what we've heard, Jaden Bray. DJ Epps is really dynamic with the ball in his hands. John Niter is a sneaky guy. You haven't even talked about the JUCO guys, or some of the high school guys. There's a lot to like in the room.
The JUCO guys are, they're interesting too, right? Because they paid for those guys to come in, at least what we were told.
Was it Triplett that committed?
Kendrick Triplett, yeah, and Keon Hutchins both. Yeah,
which one committed, then decommitted, then recommitted on signing day?
That was Hutchins. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. He committed, then he was not, and then on signing day he signed. And I was like, all right.
Well, I mean, he was the number one rated guy, portal wideout, right? So, or was it Triplett? I get them confused. One was ranked 7th, one was ranked number 1. But either way, they were both top 10, and I think he had a lot of suitors. Hutchins' tape is really impressive if you watch it. He's maybe the fastest guy on the team, we've heard people say. So, it makes sense. I mean, that's why they got him. I think you got to have a guy that can take the top off, right? So, Cyrus Shaw, I think, is going to surprise people this year. I've heard his name both publicly and behind the scenes a lot, and people continue to tell me he's got like Jeff Weimer type ability. So that route runner that's just really athletic that people don't. Have you ever seen him? He went viral against Destroying.
Yeah, I saw him against Pittsburgh. He scored a touchdown against Pitt a few years ago. He scored a touchdown in that game from Youngstown State. I was actually surprised that he didn't get more playing time last year. I don't think he saw too many snaps at West Virginia last year.
I think it was just we were a mess. We couldn't afford to get young guys in.
It was such a weird, that's the thing. I think that's why wide receiver, I'm trying to stay cautiously optimistic because I know there's talent, but you never know with this position. I thought last year Justin Smith-Brown would have been a little bit more productive than he was. Jeffrey Weimer came on at the end. Oren Singleton caught 63 balls at Eastern Michigan and had 2 catches for us.
Listen, my buddy, somebody I grew up with, his son plays is a D lineman for Eastern Michigan. And he was like, oh, man, you guys are going to love Man. He's a hard worker. He was the best player on our team. And I was all excited about him coming here. And I mean, he had a great camp, we heard, but I don't know what happened.
Well, I think both Eastern Michigan guys too, the offensive lineman that we had last year too, he didn't get too much playing time, which was a little bit surprising either.
Yeah, and I had him on the show. I liked him a lot. Carson Lee.
Yep. And it's I almost forgot, I had a brain fart the other day, thinking of his name. I'm like, who's that guy we had again from Eastern Michigan? Because he played a lot of snaps. He had a good background. So I think that's why, when we talk about the national media and why people are down so much on West Virginia, it's because, there are a lot of
I understand why.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks.
I totally understand why. You know what I mean? Jersey. I can see it from the outside looking in, why you would think that. I've seen people explain it. The one guy just, some people don't take a lot of time to look into what we did. But we do need a lot of I don't want to call them experiments, and then we'll get out of here. But if you were objective and look at what we actually need to work, like let's just go down the list really quick. What do we need to work for this team to be quote unquote successful? Let's benchmark it at 7 wins, Jersey. To get to 7 wins, you're going to have to figure your quarterback situation out. Obviously, you're going to have an average Big 12 quarterback at least to win 7 games. Do you agree?
Yes, and I think before we even talk about the quarterback, you need to stay healthy. That's number
Yes,
one. Stay healthy.
absolutely. So Hawkins, whether it's Mike Hawkins Jr., Scotty Fox, or even maybe Brown or one of the freshmen, somebody's got to come out and just be a stabilizing force. Obviously, the offensive line has to come together. That if that doesn't happen, then we're doomed. We don't make the bowl. We probably don't make a bowl, right? So I think it will. I really am optimistic. Rick Trickett's had great success, and I think that one of the reasons they're starting, at least as of right now, Cam Griffin has really put himself in a spot here to potentially start. I think he's going to end up being the 6th guy as of right now. I mean, this is the way we ended the spring. Cam Griffin may surged up the line, what I was heard towards the end of this spring, and that's because of his familiarity with everything, right? He ain't the most talented, but he's definitely the most consistent right now, along with Amari Grayson, who is very talented. And I think, it's really interesting to see that. But they got to come together, obviously, whether that's what combination ends up being. Now we've got Kevin Brown and Malik Agbo battling it out over on the right side, and then they have Kevin over on the left side now. And last I heard, Kevin's back on the left side. They're battling it out, man. So real quick though,
I think just looking at the depth of it's a little surprising in my opinion that I'm looking at like the 24/7 depth chart, their post depth chart. They have Wes King and Voss as the backups right now, which is those guys are again guys that didn't give up a sack in like 2 or 3 seasons where they were at. So I think it's I think the competition in that room is going to be pretty fascinating. They spent a lot of money at that position this year.
I had Vass on my show, his agent on my show, and I talk to him every couple of weeks, sometimes every month. And one of the things about Devin is he got hurt during the spring, so that's one of the main reasons why he's behind a little bit. Had he not gotten hurt, I think he would be right there firmly in the mix. He's still right there in the mix. He'll be fine. Devin Vass, man, I watched him. I've got the tape. I've got it. I'll send it to you. I've got 75 plays of him absolutely whipping the Utah defensive line, who was really good last year. John Henry Daly whooped him on several occasions in that game, head to head. So I know what Vass can do. He only played 7 games in his life. So he's still really young too. But like those 7 games, launch pad for him. I mean, it was down to us and Auburn, and then we were fighting over him hardcore.
You gotta like the Big 12 experience too. A lot of these guys are coming up from Wyoming and Jack State. He has that Big 12 pedigree coming in, which helps.
That's one of the reasons I was projecting him to start as well. But
there's so many interesting pieces, though. Look at just like Agbo. What are they going to do? Yeah, Cassidy, and even the guys that played last year, it's going to be really interesting to see how many returning guys like Cray and Livingston are their spots solidified. Like that's going to be probably the most fascinating battle of camp, in my opinion, is probably the offensive line, because there's a lot of different ways they can go.
A lot of different ways they can go. Oh, by the way, Cray, I've been told by multiple people, has been the best offensive line in camp. So
that's great to hear, because he's played for this team, and you need a leader in that room. So that's a good sign to hear.
Trickett walked up to him, moved him to left guard, and they said he took to it like duck to water.
Some guys have an eye for
Kevin.
that
That's Kevin Brown's dad saying that.
Yeah.
He said he took to it like duck to water. So, anyways, appreciate you for being on, man. We can go on and on. A couple other things really quick before we go. Obviously, quarterbacks. We said offensive line has to come together. If those 2 things happen on offense, we'll be good. Defense, I think just going over the checklist, Jersey. Tell me what you don't agree with, if anything. Defensive line, we've heard pretty good things about in camp. They've had a couple of days where they were good against our offensive line. If our offensive line is as good as we think, then perhaps it could be that good. Linebackers have 6 new guys Alley likes. Nickel is the most talented room that Zach Alley says we've had, and is like 5 deep legitimately. Safety is pretty good too with Sig and obviously your guy Kamari Wilson we talked about and some of those others. So it seems like on defense, a little linebacker, maybe a little D-line, maybe a little corner questions there. What do you say?
Front seven is a little concerning. I think one of the reasons is I was expecting to hear a little bit more about Toby Hostrup coming out of the spring camp.
He's
Not
still,
Still raw. He's a
yeah,
guy that played only, I think, his senior year of high school. He played 1 year
correct.
and he got the scholarship offer, so he's raw. But man, like that's a guy we saw from Oregon. He got all excited, but we might have to be patient with that one. Obviously, Zeke Rose is going to be exciting. I know the JUCO kid KJ Henson. I think that's good. I think
Love KJ Henson.
I think out of all the JUCO guys this year, I think it's a safe bet he's going to have the biggest impact.
I love that you said that, man. You're going to get brownie points from me for saying that.
Yeah, we need him to step up, and you still have guys like McIntyre and things like that. The linebacker room, I like Stolsky. I think he's an old school player. We have some other guys coming back, but I think there's more questions than answers, unfortunately, with the front seven. I like how you mentioned the safeties. We got Bradford, we got Sig, we got Wilson, we got Latimer at the nickel. We got Podrell playing there. We got some guys and dudes in the secondary. I'm more concerned with the front seven than I am the secondary.
Correct. Make sure you're checking Jersey out on YouTube, guys. We got to run. We're over. But thank you for being here, making us your first listen every day. Make sure you check out Locked On College Football next, and check us out at the Everydayer Club, LockedOnWestVirginia.supercast.com, where we would definitely love to hang out with you there. We're ad-free audio, members only Discord, the whole thing. Love to see you there. Last thing though, don't ever forget to cue those country roads.